I could not bear it, the heiress said in the hall, quite clearly, to be looked at all my life by eyes that cannot see me. The Duke of Lyneham stood on the other side of the screen with his hand on the back of a chair, and counted, without meaning to, the fourth refusal in 3 years. He had learned to hear a room the way other men read one. He knew there were 9 people in the hall. Miss Lavinia Pike by the stairs with her satin whispering when she shifted her weight. Her mother 2 paces off, breathing through her nose the way she did when she was pleased with herself. 2 footmen at the door, both very still. His own steward by the long table, shuffling papers to cover the silence. The Pike's maid on the landing, and 3 more he had not yet placed. 8 years of blindness had made Gideon Omril a great many things, and one of them was extremely difficult to lie to. Lavinia, her mother murmured, "Hush. You brought me here, Mamma. You said a duke. You did not say that." A rustle, a small sound of distaste. He did not even know his glass was moved at dinner. Mrs. Callow had to move it back. "Mrs. Callow," said a voice from the landing, "had no business moving it in the first place." The hall went quiet in an entirely new way. It was a young woman's voice, low, unhurried, with a faint burr in it that was not London. Gideon turned his head half an inch toward the stair. His Grace set that glass down at the top of his knife where he could find it. The voice went on, perfectly civil, and Mrs. Callow shifted it to be tidy, and then he reached for it and it was gone. "That is not his affliction, ma'am. That is somebody else's helpfulness." "You forget yourself," Mrs. Pike said, in the voice of a woman addressing furniture. "Very likely." A pause. "And Miss Pike, he has been looking at you all evening. He turned to you whenever you spoke, and he answered every word you said, which is more than you did for him. He asked after your brother's regiment. He remembered your father's mare. You have not once asked him a single question about himself. Forgive me, but of the 2 of you in that dining room, only one was truly looking, and it was not the one with eyes." Gideon heard his steward drop a paper. "Miss Vale," Mrs. Pike said, "you may go up and pack. I do not keep a companion who insults my daughter under a stranger's roof." "Then I shall pack, ma'am. Steps on the stair, even quick going up, not fleeing. Good night." The Pikes were gone from Lyneham by 10 the next morning. It was, Gideon thought as their carriage crunched away down the avenue, the most agreeable departure he had ever listened to. At 11 he sent for Miss Vale. She came in and stopped 4 feet from his desk, and he knew from the sound of her feet on the boards that she had not curtsied at the door and then crept forward, the way most people did, as though he might be startled by an approach. "You are dismissed from Mrs. Pike's service," he said. "I am, your Grace." "On my account." "On my own account. I said it. Nobody made me." Her voice had the same unhurried burr. "She has paid me to the quarter, and I have my character from her, which is more than I expected, so I am not destitute. I am obliged to you for the loan of a bed last night." "Sit down." He heard the chair take her weight. "What is your name?" "Tamsin Vale." "Your father?" "A shipwright at Cardrow. He is dead. My mother taught me my letters, and my father taught me to add, and when they were gone, my aunt found me a place as a companion, which is a great deal of walking behind other people carrying their shawls." A small dry note came into her voice. "I have been very good at it for 4 years, and I have never once said what I thought until last night, so I hope you will make allowances." "What made last night different?" There was a pause. He listened to it. He had learned a great deal about people from the shapes of their pauses. "They were talking about you as though you were a chair in the room," she said. "And you had been kinder to me at dinner than either of them. You asked whether I would take the wine, and you asked me, and not the table." Gideon put his hands flat on his desk. He was 39 years old and a duke of considerable estate, and he had been blind since a fever took his sight in his 31st year. And in 8 years, no one outside his household had spoken to him for 5 minutes without lowering their voice. "I have an offer to make you," he said. "It is not charity, and I will be insulted if you take it for charity. My library has 2,000 volumes and my accounts run to 9 tenants' books. My steward reads them to me. I do not care for the way he reads them. I want somebody who reads exactly what is on the page, at the pace I ask, without editing it for my comfort, and who will not tidy my glass. £40 a year and your own room. You may leave whenever you choose, and I will write your character myself. Why not simply engage a clerk?" "I have engaged 3. 2 of them shouted. The third called me sir in the tone one uses for an invalid, and I let him go after a fortnight." He heard her breathe out something like a laugh held down. "Will you take it?" "I will take it," said Tamsin Vale, "on one condition, which I hope is not impertinent." "You have already been impertinent. Continue." "When I read you a column of figures, and you tell me I have made an error, I should like to be allowed to argue." "Miss Vale," said the Duke of Lyneham, "you may argue as long as you are right." She began the following Monday, and inside a month Gideon had ceased to notice that he looked forward to 9 o'clock. She read the way he had wanted somebody to read for 8 years. Flat, exact, no dramatics, and she never once said "poor man." She learned in 3 days not to move anything on his desk, and in a week to say, "The door is at your left hand, 4 paces," only in a house that was not his own, and never in his own, because in his own he knew every board and every draught. She learned that he counted the steps of the great stair aloud when he was thinking, and not when he was walking. She learned to describe things. That last was her real gift, and she seemed not to know she had it. "What is the sky doing?" he asked her once on the terrace in March. "Most people said it is fine, Your Grace," in the voice of someone humoring a request. Tamsin Vale said, "There is a bank of cloud over the beech wood the color of a knife blade, and the sun is under it, so there is a long copper line along the bottom edge, as though somebody had drawn it with a ruler. The lawn has gone very green in that light, greener than it can possibly be, and the 2 rooks on the balustrade look as if they had been cut out of black paper and stuck on." He stood with his face turned to a sky he had not seen for 8 years, and he saw it. "You should write," he said. "I do not care to write, I like telling." They rode, once the ground hardened. He had ridden all his life and had never stopped. His mare, Sabine, knew the ridge track, and he knew it better, by the sound of the wind changing when the wood ended, and by the hollow note the ground made on the old drove road. The stable men had spent 8 years dreading it, and never once been justified. Tamsin rode badly, having learned on a shipwright's borrowed cob, and said so, and asked him to teach her. "You would take instruction from me." "I would take instruction from the best horseman on the estate, Your Grace, and by every account in the kitchen that is you." A creak of leather as she mounted. "Also nobody else will teach me, because they are all afraid of Mrs. Callow, who says a companion has no business on a horse." He taught her. He corrected her hands by touch, and her seat by the sound of the mare's stride, and by June she could hold a canter on the ridge without hauling at the poor animal's mouth, and one afternoon she laughed aloud up there in the wind, and Gideon Aumerle turned his face toward the sound and understood, with the calm of a man reading a total at the bottom of a long column, that he was in serious trouble. It was the accounts that broke the summer open. She had been reading the tenant's books for 4 months, and she read them exactly as he had asked, which meant she read the parts nobody had meant him to hear. "Blackthorn Farm," she said, "Michaelmas, rent received £62.10, repairs to the barn £41. Stop. She stopped. Read the Lady Day entry for Blackthorn again. She turned back. Repairs to the barn £38. And Michaelmas the year before. Paper, repairs to the barn £40 even. Gideon sat very still. He had a memory like a ledger himself. He had been obliged to grow one. 3 barn roofs in 18 months on a farm of 90 acres. Miss Vale, how many barns has Blackthorn? 1, she said slowly. I have seen it from the ridge. It is not a large barn. Read me every entry under repairs for all 9 farms since Lady Day 2 years ago. Slowly. Do not add anything up. I will do that. It took 2 hours and 11 minutes. She read, and he sat with his hands folded, and the figures went into him and arranged themselves, and at the end of it he said a number aloud. £416, 8 shillings, for work that had never been done, all of it certified by the same hand. Mr. Farrow, Tamsin said. Mr. Farrow, his steward of 6 years, who read him the accounts in a soothing voice, and skipped the columns he did not wish the Duke to dwell upon, and had been quite certain that a blind man could not hold £400 of small lies in his head. Send to the magistrate at Corve, and Miss Vale, I will have the tenants themselves in this room, every one of them. I want it from their own mouths, and I want you to write down what they say, and I want nothing softened. She was quiet a moment. You are not going to ask me whether I am sure. You read me what was on the page, said the Duke of Lyneham. The rest of it is mine. The tenants came in over 3 days. Gideon sat at the long table and questioned 9 farmers in his own voice. And by the second afternoon, the news had run round the county that the blind Duke of Lyneham had caught his steward out to the shilling, from memory, with no witness but a companion nobody had heard of. Farrow went before the magistrate. The county talked of nothing else for a fortnight. And Mrs. Callow, who had served the family 30 years and had never got over being frightened of him, came to Gideon in the gun-room and said, in a small voice, Your Grace, I have been moving your glass. I know. I meant it kindly. I know that too. He found the edge of the table and leaned there. Mrs. Callow, when I was blinded, everyone in this house began to help me. It was all meant kindly, and in 5 years it very nearly finished me, because a man who is helped with everything is not a man any more. He is a piece of furniture that must be carried from room to room. Leave my glass where I put it. If I want a thing I shall ask, and I am not shy. She was crying. He heard it and pretended not to. Miss Vale never moved a thing, she said. No, said Gideon, she did not. He asked her that night, and made a thorough mess of it. They were in the library. She had finished reading and closed the book, and the fire was down to its last log, and he could smell the beeswax on the shelves and the rain beginning outside, and he said, without any preparation whatever, Miss Vale, I should like you to marry me. The silence had a shape he did not like at all. You would never want for anything, he said, into it. You would have a settlement of your own and the run of this library, and no one in this house would ever speak to you as Mrs. Pike did. And he stopped, and did the thing he had done for 8 years when feeling ran too near the surface. He retreated into terms. I will be honest with you. It would be a convenience to me. You read as no one else reads. You describe the world as no one else describes it. I have grown used to being understood, and I do not wish to give it up. It is a fair bargain, I think. £40 a year against a duchess's portion. No, said Tamsin Vale. Gideon had been refused 3 times before by young women with good dowries and better manners, and none of them had cost him anything at all. No. Not like that. Her voice was steady, and there was something under the steadiness that he could not read, and it was the first time in a year he had wanted his eyes back. "Your Grace, I'm a shipwright's daughter with 12 pounds in the world. If I were only greedy, I would say yes before you finished the sentence. But you have just offered me a place. A better place than Mrs. Pike's, with a ring on it, but a place. You told me what use I would be to you. You did not tell me one single thing about what I am. I do not," he gripped the arm of the chair. "I am not skilled at that." "Then learn it, sir, because I have watched 4 fine ladies in 3 years look at you and see nothing but a want to be filled, and I will not do the same thing to you from the other side. I would be your wife. I will not be your eyes with a marriage settlement attached." A breath, unsteady at last. "And I could not bear, in 10 years, to hear you say to somebody that you married me because it was a convenience. I would rather go and carry shawls." He heard her stand. "You are leaving," he said. "I am going to my aunt at Cardrow in the morning. I think I must. Forgive me." Her step went to the door and paused there. "The fire has 1 log and it is nearly through. There is rain on the west window, and your glass is at the top of your knife where you put it." The door closed. He sat in the dark he had lived in for 8 years and found it, for the first time in a long while, unbearable. Cardrow was 52 miles. His household told him it could not be done, that he must send Grimes, that if he must go he must be driven with 2 footmen and Mrs. Callow to see to the inn. Gideon listened to all of it, and then had Sabine saddled and took his groom Tobias, 1 man and 2 horses, and rode out at first light, and they lay at Ilstead overnight and came into Cardrow at 4 the next afternoon. And he did it the way he had done everything for 8 years, by asking, by counting, by listening, and by declining to be carried. The town smelled of tar and salt and shavings. He heard gulls, a caulking hammer somewhere below, and a woman calling a price for fish. "There is a green door with a brass anchor, your Grace," Tobias said, "and a fair number of folk watching us." "Let them watch, knock." An ant answered, an ant of the sharper kind, and there was a great deal of scuffling, and a chair offered twice, and then a step he would have known across a crowded church. "Your Grace," Tamsin's voice was not steady at all, "you rode here." 52 miles in 1 day and a half, which is nothing to boast of, but I am told I could not have done it, so I mention it. He turned toward her exactly. "Miss Vale, I have had 4 days to learn what you told me to learn, and I have composed it 100 times, and I shall probably ruin it, so I will simply say it in front of your aunt and the whole of Cardrow if necessary." "My aunt has gone into the scullery to listen through the door," said Tamsin. "Say it." "You have a voice like the low string of a cello, and you use it as though words cost money. You laughed on the ridge in June, and I have thought about it every day since. You are stubborn to the point of rudeness, and you are right often enough to make it insufferable. You told a duchess-in-waiting the truth in a hall full of servants, because you thought a man was being talked over, and you knew it would cost you your place, and you did it anyway. And that is the bravest thing anyone has done in my house in my lifetime. You have never once pitied me. You do not think there is anything to pity, and because you do not, I have stopped thinking so either, and I have been 8 years arriving at that, and you did it in a fortnight." He heard her breathing. He had learned to hear tears. "I did not come here for my eyes," he said. "I have my eyes. They are Tobias and my own 2 ears and 39 years of memory, and they serve me. I came because a house of 90 rooms was empty when you left it, and because I would like, if you will let me, to grow old arguing with you about columns of figures. Tamsin, not a bargain, not a place. I love you, and I have no arrangement whatever to offer you in exchange for it." There was a sound from the scullery, very like an ant sitting down heavily. Tamsin Vale crossed the room. She took his hand, she took it, and put it against her wet cheek and held it there. "Yes," she said. "You are certain I am not an easy. You are an extremely difficult man, and I have known it since March." She laughed, cracked and wet. "Yes, yes, you great obstinate creature, 52 miles. 52, said Gideon, and I would have gone twice that, though I should have been very stiff. They were married at Cardrow, in the small salt-stained church at the top of the Shipwright Street, because she wanted her father's town to see it, and Gideon Omril had no objection whatever to being married in front of 200 people who built boats. He walked up the aisle unaided, counting, as he always did. She met him at the top and put her hand into his, and when the parson asked, his voice did not shake in the least. The county, which had spent 3 years pitying him and 4 days astonished by him, decided within a season that the new Duchess of Lyneham was the cleverest thing that had ever happened to the estate. She read him the accounts every Monday for 30 years and argued when she was right. He rode the ridge until he was 71. And in the evenings, when the fire was down and the house was quiet, she would tell him what the sky had done that day. The knife-blade cloud, the copper line, the rooks like black paper. And he would sit with her hand in his and see it all exactly, and think that of all the things a man might be given, being truly looked at was the rarest.